Welcome, folks, to your Reality Gurus. You show we take a commonsensical approach to issues through complex conversation. I'm your host, G. Cleve, and first things first, good morning. Good morning, good morning. Yo, don't be rude, man. Get in the comments and say it right back. Hit us with a like, a share. Be sure to check out that YouTube Reality Guru show. Consider subscribing. Listen, we got a dope show for you guys today. First, starting up top, I got my man, returning guest, Jamie. You know, we got
What up?
Guru DB, Anye, Miss Tashi, and also special guest Shay, Reality Gurus. Folks, I'm not going to waste another minute. Let's get right into this thing, man. Y'all see the title, Pro Black and Interracial Relationship, A Woman's Perspective. So probably maybe a few months back, man, we actually got into this topic and, had some good conversation, but we didn't have any women on the panel to really give us that alternate perspective, especially Black women. Now, Anye, Jamie, the two of you individuals, let's be clear for the public, so we can get right into this. You guys you guys are not married to Black women. Are we clear on that? Is that the truth?
I wouldn't say that, but we're not married to white women either. Let's put it that way.
Well, I mean, listen. We're gonna get to that. I want to kind of speed this along, and just want to make it aware that
the African American women. Let's put it that way.
African American women. Okay, so you guys are not married to African American women. Okay, so now Tashi. And you guys have your reasons behind that. Let me go ahead and open this up to the. Say it again.
But we married to women of African
descent. Listen. You're gonna have plenty of time to defend yourself, gentlemen. Plenty of time. Let me open the conversation up to the women. To first start off by saying, women, ladies, thank you for joining the show. Overall, how do you guys feel about the idea of successful Black men, marrying outside of the race? Tasha, I'll let you start with that.
How do I feel about it?
Yeah.
In general, I have absolutely no problem with it because I believe love is love. So I don't care who loves who. Mm-hmm. But I think that as a society, we see certain relationships between different races. Sometimes we look at it as an opportunity situation or a power situation or like a subconscious betterment situation. It looks good on you, and I think that's where that energy derives from, where Black women themselves or the Black culture feel like we should not date outside our race.
Mm-hmm.
Short and sweet.
Okay. Now I think you're going to reserve that energy for a little later, but we're going to pump this up. So Miss Shay, how about you? In general, how do you feel about the idea?
Personally, I think that I don't like it personally. Mm-hmm. I think that a Black man should date a Black woman, mm-hmm. and stick within your race. I mean, it's cool at least marrying them. Now, if you want to get your loins off or whatever the case may be, then hands with your handle. But all of that, you can't help who you love. The reality of it is, you ain't love them when you first saw them. So. How could you allowed yourself, and you picked that person, so therefore you allowed yourself to fall in love with them because you constantly was around them.
Okay, so DB, before I address Anye and Jamie and allow them to go ahead and to speak, we do know that you are married to a Black woman, correct? African American woman. Yeah. Okay. Overall, how do you feel about the idea of successful Black men? Choosing to marry outside of their race. How do you feel about that?
Successful Black men. Are we keeping it just on successful Black men?
I'm saying successful. I'm talking about successful specifically. Yeah, where I'm looking at Anye and I'm looking at Jamie. They look pretty good. They look like some handsome brothers. They look like they take care of themselves, right? So let's not lump them in with individuals, right? Who may be less desirable. I'm talking about some successful Black men who have chosen to marry outside of their race, and I'm asking you overall, how do you feel about a situation like that?
Well, because when you said successful, automatically I just thought about the main narrative always about the ball player that goes with the white woman and all that stuff, and I think with that there is a power structure element that might, quite frankly, be in there. Overall, I'm kind of the same on the same line as Tashina in the fact that that theoretically I have no problem with it because it depends on the scenario. We are here in America where you have to coincide and live with other people of different races. So there is something there, but there is a dynamic that is about culture that might get confused in all of that situation. You know what I mean? But overall, I have no problem with it individually. That's why I asked about the successful part, because there is a power structure element to it that when you get higher up, you have a certain maybe idea of what a certain kind of woman is that you need on your side. It becomes a trophy thing, kind of, sort of.
So again, just so I'm clear, your feelings behind it is what now? Your overall feelings behind it is what? You said a lot, but I just want to be sure.
I don't care. And individual wise, I don't care. You basically, you know, unless I know your true story, and I could really judge on it, I don't care if somebody necessarily goes outside their race.
Okay. All right. So now, folks, you guys have heard pretty much what the panel has to say. Now we're going to give Jamie and Anye an opportunity to go ahead and address some things. Anye, let's get with you, man. So your wife is not African American. And you've heard what the ladies have had to say. You've heard what DB has to say. You know, first off, you know, how did you arrive at that, you know, at that decision to go ahead and marry outside of your race?
Well, here's the thing, okay. So let me make it clear. My wife is Samoan. Depending on one's consciousness, some people gonna say that's black, some people gonna say that's not black, some people never even heard of that before. If you do the research, you'll see they come from us, you know what I'm saying? They're original people, they black people. So I'm from Los Angeles, California, you know what I'm saying? A very diverse place. We all mixed in together, but specifically Polynesians and blacks have a very tight-knit relationship within our neighborhoods. We grow up together, we go to school together, we bang together, we bang with us in jail, you know what I'm saying? We tight, we rock like that, you know what I'm saying? So specifically in LA, and that's why this type of conversation is a case-to-case basis. It's not really looked at like a interracial thing in Los Angeles, you know, so to speak, from most people's perspective, you know. And I really wanted to hit on this topic because I was seeing a lot of stuff on social media, you know what I'm saying, over like the last year, where it's like it's almost become like a witch hunt, you know what I'm saying, against specifically brothers. You know what I'm saying? Forgetting that sisters, you know, date outside too, but specifically attacking the brothers in these situations who are pro-black. You know, you make the example of brothers that are successful, but I just want to deal with specifically brothers that have the dedication for the struggle. You know?
Interesting. So, okay, that's, you know, I'll come back to you in a minute. Jamie, let me get you in here. This is going to be pretty good, man. Jamie, so as far as you know, you heard what Yates had to say. You heard what the ladies had to say, DB. In your situation, you know, you are not married to African American woman. How did you arrive at that?
So the reason why I specify that is, you know, my wife is Puerto Rican.
Okay.
So African American, no, but my wife is still black. If you know your history, you know, I don't have to break it down to you. Most people know the history of Puerto Rican people, how they got here. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I consider myself still married to a black woman. I don't consider myself in an interracial relationship. My issue comes from it's almost as if I think this thing has deteriorated to the point where we as a whole, we as black people are denigrating brothers who are with women that are light skinned. There's a lot of colorism that's seeped into it too. And I feel like in a lot of ways, if you listen to the rhetoric, we sound like our oppressors in the way how we treat people, you know, and who they choose to date. Mm-hmm. My issue with my only issue when it comes to interracial relationships, and this goes no matter who you with. The only issue I have with it is if you're putting that person on a pedestal over a black woman. So you say, you know, you dating a white woman or whatever, and you say, yo, I got something better. Then I got a problem with that. You understand what I'm saying? Like, you know, or even a black woman, I'm dating a white man. Well, I got something better that to me, that's when it becomes problematic in interracial relationships.
Okay, so here's the
That's
deal.
the oxymoron.
Here's the deal, real quick, Shay. Before I get you guys back into it, I wanted to make sure everybody had an opportunity to toss out their little synopsis or what they wanted the people to know before we go ahead and turn the fucking heat up on this situation here, right? So let me go ahead and put a little something out here. Now, I'm at the stage of my development now where the idea of interracial couples, that's people's preference. You go ahead and you do what you need to do. Where it becomes a problem with me is specifically when you raise your hand and you say, you're not talking about successful black men. You're talking about ones that are real active and verbal about the struggle. So it becomes an issue because if you are about the struggle, then looking about how you and Jamie decided to marry outside of your race, it becomes a little confusing. I mentioned something to you guys not too long ago in one of these little off-cam situations about single black women. And, these single black women that reach 40, 45, 50 years old and they've never been married, right? So if that is an issue in this struggle, in this experience that we come from, right? And you guys are eligible, black men, eligible, right? Successful. And to put a cherry on top, you guys talk about the struggle. How do you make sense of that to a single black woman who's saying, well, shit, you didn't even give us a chance. You talk about the struggle. We single black women looking for eligible black men. But now we can't even look at you as a viable option. Because you didn't jump ship and you done went to another ethnic group. Now, again, listen. You could do what you need to do in your personal life, right? But the minute you raise your hand, start talking about, you part of the struggle, then you got to be consistent with your words and your actions. If you guys want to fade away into obscurity and go live in a neighborhood, you know what I'm saying, where it's accepted and you don't have to worry about the ridicule and the criticism, then you do that, and no one can say anything the wiser. You raise your hand, start talking about that pro black stuff. Then the stuff that comes out of your mouth and the actions got to be consistent. And that's what my issue is. Ladies, let's go ahead and open this conversation. I'm going to open this conversation.
And let me start that off. So here's the thing. With that dedication, I did move to an all-black city with my Samoan wife. We do have a Pan-African ideology within our household, which we always discuss, which we always deal with. My wife specifically is an activist. You know what I'm saying? This is how I got with her. We teach our children about their blackness, about their African roots, about their Samoan roots. So we have that dedication to the struggle. But here is the thing. I didn't come into my consciousness as a small child. I actually came into my consciousness at 25, learning all this along with my wife. So that's more of an indictment on our community as a whole. Ultimately, we're holding people to an unrealistic standard. We're saying we want you to date black, we want you to date black, but we're not creating the infrastructures for that to happen. Ultimately, you have people out here fending for themselves when it comes to this whole relationship game. We're hearing people say, I want you to date black, I want you to date black. But we get out here in the world and we got to find love on our own because we don't have this structured black community where we have functional black people making it happen. Other communities, the Asian community, the Jewish community, they say these things. We want you to date Jewish. We want you to date Asian. But they have the infrastructure. Their children come up amongst their own, come up around their own. So it's easily accessible. But a lot of times, in our case, it may be a matter of proximity. Where did you grow up at? You know what I'm saying?
Follow-up question, and then I'm letting these ladies get back in here. So how does an ethnic group like, the Asians, Jews, how do you think they were able to, preserve that way of living if it wasn't something that was constantly talked about in households? You see the actions of the men in that community, acting the same way that they're being taught in households. Yay, if black people, right, are going to ever, ascend to a situation where we can actually, mimic that type of togetherness, then explain to me how that's going to happen if there are professional, successful black men who are doing this, but choosing to go outside of their race with another woman. That's what I want to know.
I understand the point that you're making. I'm just saying that we're putting the cart before the horse. I'm saying let's develop these communities first. When we develop these communities, we'll see more of what we want. Because ultimately, it's bullshit. It's bullshit in the first place because we're not facing an epidemic to where all these brothers is dating non-black women.
Right. Let me jump in there.
Hold on, Jamie. Hold on, Jamie. I want to make sure these ladies. Make sure these ladies touch because this is about them.
Okay.
You know.
He just said it like 2 episodes ago. What is it like? 80 to 90% of black men are with black women. So this nostalgia that it's all these brothers leaving sisters to go with others. That shit is false.
So is your argument that because the majority of black men is with black women, y'all should leave me alone and let me go and marry who the fuck I want to marry? Is that your argument?
No.
No, I'm saying because if you say to me if you're gonna throw numbers, if you're gonna throw numbers to me and say 80 to 90% of black men are marry black women, but you not one of them. So are you saying if focus on the 90% who are and leave our small 10% alone? Let us go ahead and just marry who we want to marry and raise our hand and say we about to struggle and go ahead and do all the stuff in our lives. But we didn't. But again, the perception is you didn't think enough of a black woman to go ahead and ask for a hand in marriage. Listen, ladies, go ahead and weigh in on this, man. Let me know what y'all feel about what it is that you guys are hearing right now.
I mean, Jay, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go because I'm gonna start with what Jamie said. Is if you don't put your woman on a pedestal or something to that premise, she said, right? If you don't put them above. But here's my thing: when you're in a relationship, you're supposed to put your woman on a pedestal. Yeah. But the thing is, if you're dealing with a woman that's not African American, you are putting on a pedestal above an African American woman because that's your woman, right? So what you said is kind of contradictory.
Not really.
What you said was have a problem with a man that put a white woman on a pedestal above a black woman. But in retrospect, if you're putting your spouse, right, on a pedestal and they're white, that's exactly what you're doing.
You're talking about individual. You're talking about individualism. You're talking about individually. You're supposed to put your wife above all others. But for you to, it's different than saying, "Yo, I got this white woman and she better than a black woman because A, B, and C." That's different. That's different. So I'm gonna put this white woman on a pedestal over a black woman. You're talking about individual. You understand what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying. I just don't agree with what you're saying. So what I'm saying to you is going back to what G said is how do we kind of fix that? You got to remember in the Jewish community, in the Indian community, in all of these communities, if you date outside your race, they're ostracizing you from the family.
Right.
You're on your own.
That's interesting.
So therefore, as African Americans, we don't do that. So you can't bring a black man into an Indian home and say, "Hey, here's me," and they're performing and open to that.
Tashi, let Tashi weigh in. Tashi, real quick, Tashi, weigh in on that. I see you look like you itching to get a couple comments in. Weigh in on that, please.
They on that. She on me, baby. What she said, I'm going to pivot off of the point where, okay, so with the Jewish community, Indian community, Asian community, they create their enclaves, whether it be on top of that religious or just the cultural aspect. You, like she said, you will get ostracized or you will be banished from your family for dating outside your race. Now, to add to that, as black people, let's say black Americans, because I'm West Indian American, so I'm a little, but as black Americans, what is normal to you guys? Is it dating in your race or is it the slave master messing with the light skin or messing with a white woman? Or you know what I mean? That mix of races derives from years ago. And then you have that mentality that has trickled down. And then you have media. So it's a lot of things that go on in the black community that does not happen in those other communities because they have created an enclave that within the US. When they were in their natural, let's say natural environments in India, they don't mix races. They don't even mix classes.
At all.
That classes is key. That's key.
They don't mix races. They don't even mix religions, right?
Absolutely.
And when you deal with Chinese, more than most times, different Asian cultures, China, Japan, they don't even mix.
Absolutely.
Well, okay, now.
All right, so okay.
I'm not done. Sorry. So when you in a nation that historically mixing makes you gives you preference to things, this is where that normalcy comes from. But at the same time, everyone other than Anya and Jamie, I don't consider Anya and Jamie married to white women, as in Caucasian women. So yes, they're dating outside of their skin
ethnicity,
tone or whatever it is, and ethnicity, but they're not dating outside of their race to me. And that's just that.
DB, I haven't heard you in a while.
Okay.
Weigh in, DB.
I mean, ultimately, I had a lot of back and forth with it. Just hearing the conversation. One of the things, backing off of Jamie said again, I think the issue with some of that stuff is as far as the pedestal and putting a woman up, it begs a bigger question of that fine line between a fetish and a preference. You know what I'm saying? With a lot of people, not saying with him or anybody else, but there is a lot of that involved when you think about it, about what you desire from a woman and why you desire it. But I do understand about the whole idea of a pedestal, because even if you have a wife outside your culture, you still have a mom, you still possibly have a sister, you still have aunts, you still have black women who you probably love and respect to a point where, you know, you could weigh all that shit out. The thing about the culture, I was thinking originally was pretty much, I was kind of backing off of it because we kept on saying race. And when you're talking about other cultures, it's not necessarily a race thing, it's a culture thing. It's basically what the religion is, what your class is. And even that still kind of goes to my idea, because the fact is that those people don't necessarily mix because of the way the hierarchy is. If you have a certain set of classism, especially if you talk about the Indian culture or whatever, there's people on the top, people on the bottom, and you naturally don't mix it. Here in America, we don't have that. Here in America, we don't have that kind of structure where you necessarily have to live on one side and the other, where it makes that shit more confusing. On top of all the other issues that everybody brought up, that mentality of light skin. I mean, we can do it, but where do you have it?
No, like, I'm sorry. Just I have to cut you off. I'm talking. Wait, hold on, Shay. Just 1 second. I don't want to let D finish. What I said, I disagree. I'm talking about as far as you saying that we don't have that in this country, because we absolutely do. If you talk about about the top, 1%, the rich, that can be considered, right? That same type of
classism. I'm talking about basically black and white. I'm talking
no.
about
You saying you're still saying the mixing, but okay. I'm not going to stop your point. But when you say mixing, there are people in this country, because they come from such a wealth base, that they wouldn't even deal with what they would consider a common individual, and that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of those.
But go ahead, finish.
I'm saying, hold on.
Finish.
Let me finish.
Finish.
What I'm saying that you definitely have that, but what I'm talking about, when you go into other cultures, you have more of a strict structure where you don't have that mixing in. In America, you don't. Of course, you have pockets where people don't mess with each other. We just mentioned Chinese don't really mess with each other. You know what I mean? We mentioned, Jewish people. We mentioned all of that. When you see that, basically you see when they even come down here, when you see a lot of immigrants come down here, you see one immigrant come down and two come down, and then all of a sudden you have a little town. You have a little Nigeria. You have a little Haiti. You have all of this. They stay in their culture. Let me say Black Americans. Now let's say me, because I'm not, American by birth. Black Americans don't necessarily have that. They are basically constantly pushed into other cultures as well. You know what I mean? And we kind of split and divide. So yeah, there is definitely pockets where people don't mix, but there's a lot more of that mixing, because there's so much diversity here compared to other countries. That's ultimately what I'm saying. So with that being said, that, it causes a little confusion in the Black American experience, because to be quite honest, even if you marry Black, who you marry matters a lot. Like how Tashina's saying she West Indian, I'm West Indian. If some West Indian people marry an American Black person, that's just the same as marrying a white person or somebody outside the race to a certain degree. You know what I'm saying? Certain thing with other Black people outside of America. So that's what makes this a little bit trickier, because it's beyond just the idea of race. To me,
I'm gonna get Ye back in.
Can I get a minute?
I'm not okay. I'm gonna get this. Being that he touched on a point that you stressed, and I want to make sure that somebody else touches on a point that Ye brought up. So I'm allowed D to what do you think about when Ye talks about, when we look at the statistics, that the majority of Black men, to the tune of 80-90% of which are with like women, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Why am I
I
single then?
so I'm sorry.
Why am I single then?
Wait, listen, we're gonna get to it. So what I'm saying,
That's another conversation altogether.
being that
You ain't got no polygamy. That's
Be-
why.
being that you know, he brought that out, and I was wondering if he was suggesting that because there's such a large percentage, you know, statistics wise, that we should forget about the other, you know, 10% who have chose to go outside their marriage outside their race. How do you feel about, you know, that situation? Then I'm gonna allow Ye and JB to get back in here and start throwing some punches.
Just because I want to be exact, because I know sometimes I muddle up the intention of the question. Can you repeat it a little bit differently?
Okay, so here's the thing. What I was gathering from Ye is that, you know, all of the criticism that's coming in heat that's coming down on brothers who have chosen to marry outside of their race, whether we're talking about as far as marrying Caucasian or marrying someone who is melanated but not considered, you know, who hasn't come from the experience slavery. You understand what I'm saying? The fact that he's brought that up and it seems like he was suggesting stop focusing so much on this small percentage. How do you feel about that, especially since these brothers are very conscious and we get this going on?
Well, I'm gonna say, like, you know, I feel like those are two different instances that we're talking about the idea of pro-black consciousness and black relationships. Because just because you're in a black relationship does not necessarily make you pro-black. Yeah, at all. When we're talking about the actions you do in your community, whether it's supporting black business, supporting your locality, doing for black people, you know, a lot of people could be in a relationship with each other and not speak anything pro-black. You know, I said my wife is black, and we're for black people, but I have more conversations about pro-blackness outside of our common conversations because we are in a relationship. It's just we are two black people who love each other, who, you know, we do things as a relationship. But when it comes to pro-blackness, it's usually individual actions. So, you know, I split the difference between that. But trying to answer your question more specifically, the people who focus on, and you make a point before, and I think is honest. People who are naturally settled, right? Who are naturally in a good place, nice relationship themselves, and doing their thing, normally don't criticize as much as the people who are not. So in that situation, I would not necessarily fault a black woman for thinking so, but or a black man, because there are some black men who probably would say the same thing. But I would say look at the situation individually, because there are a lot of things that I could definitely say as far as on the larger scale, again in America, with the whole idea of interracial dating, that is so convoluted that it causes a lot of this confusion. I could also say individually, knowing like we're talking about Jamie and Anya, knowing them personally, I don't fault their decisions because I know what they do automatically. I know what they do for their people as well. That, you know, I personally would not tell anybody to kind of shut up and not criticize anything because it's open game. But, you know, if it doesn't affect you like that, right? Because just because you're saying that, okay, you know, you have two eligible black men who are no longer up for grabs because they're with somebody of another race, doesn't necessarily mean that you was going to have them. So, you know, at the end of the day, you got to look at individuals.
Listen, okay, so I didn't mean that. I'm just saying that, you know, if we're talking about
can I
numbers,
get on that, please,
after let me allow Aye and because they look like pit bulls with the leashes on, and you know I gotta let me cut the leash off Aye and Jamie. Let me give them some time to go ahead and address this stuff.
Yeah, let Jamie go because I would love to hear what Jamie.
Jamie baby, Jamie baby, you a hot demand, baby. Go ahead, baby.
What up, man? All right, so look, let me start off by saying this, because I hear this come up a lot in these conversations about what the Asians do. And let me start off. I'm not disrespecting anybody's culture. I'm not at all. Anybody knows me knows I wouldn't do that. We hear about what the Jewish community does, what the Asian community does, what the Indian community does. Let me start off by saying I don't give a shit what those communities do, because if you really break it down, like, I don't want to live in a rigid society like that. One thing about me personally is,
have you ever been there?
What's that?
Have you ever been to India or Asia?
I have not, but that's
so
that.
Before you make that statement, make sure you go there because they don't live as rigid as you think they do. Because I've been
right, and that's cool, and that's cool. But I'm saying, me personally, I don't want to live in a society where I can't marry who I want to marry. I can't be with the person I'm with is chosen for me and all this, that, and the third. If you do that and that's your community, that's cool. Me personally, I have no desire to do that. If you're happy in that, that's cool. I have no desire to be in that situation, to live like that. So I'm not saying that personally, as disrespecting those situations. I'm just saying there's this thing where we want to emulate these cultural communities, and I'm good. You know what I'm saying? So, but that being said, like Dane said, I'm pro-black, whatever. One thing I have never done, and I will never do, is be black on someone else's terms. You feel what I'm saying? By that means, I mean I'm not trading white chains for black ones. I'm going to do what the fuck I want to do and be pro-black still. And if you think, that makes me a sellout or whatever, cool. But I know in my heart, it's still with my folk. You feel what I'm saying? Now, if you marry outside of your race, whether you marry an Asian, a Caucasian, whatever, you have children. Those are still black children. And to say otherwise is to have the mentality of your oppressor.
Shots fired.
Right. I mean, that's reality.
Shots fired.
I'm not saying that's not reality, but the reality of it is Jamie, here's the thing. Me being a social worker, right? And I don't think the people look at long-term effects of interracial marriages or interracial dating and children, right? Because here's the thing. They have a lot more problems than African-American born child or a child that is just plain white or plain black or plain Asian. Do you see what I'm saying to you? They're not accepted by sometimes the European family at all. So as much
which is wait. Which is to be accepted, because traditionally that's what these people do. The Europeans, traditionally that's what they do. I got an aunt, right? My aunt is white. Okay. My uncle married my aunt, she's white. They had a baby. Her family threw her out in the fucking street. Her family threw her out in the street. But that's what these people do. That's what these people do. And traditionally, we've been more accepted. So, like,
we've been more accepted because it goes back to the slave mentality of having to accept it. See, there's a lies that you don't understand. They didn't have to accept us. Hence why they put the light skin inside the household that look more white, if you will, and that the dark.
I understand that. I totally understand that.
They're not going to accept it.
I get that.
And just because we've been accepting it for 100 years, does it make it okay to continue to accept it?
Good fucking point.
And let me finish, and I'm gonna shut up. I have a couple of points that I had to reach. So, Jamie, you said about the cultural, the you don't want to be told who you should marry. If you look at the success rate of their marriages, they actually are married much longer than we are. We believe in divorce, whereas they don't. Do you see what I'm saying to you? So if you
isn't that
hold on, D, hold on, D. Let her cook.
That means absolutely, and no disrespect. But that doesn't mean anything to me because so you don't believe in divorce, but you're gonna live miserably with somebody you can't stand or be this.
I never said I did not believe in divorce. I've been divorced.
I'm not saying you. I'm saying so these cultures don't believe in divorce. Okay, fine. But that doesn't mean that they're happy. You don't mean and like I said, I'm not throwing a broad general statement out there, but I'm saying for my observations and in my line of work, I experience a lot of cultures, right? A whole lot of cultures.
Mm-hmm.
I see a lot, like with the Indian culture. I see a lot of times.
Stop. Are you in Dane's business?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yes.
Well, I don't know what that business is, but go ahead.
So, okay, with the Indian culture, I see a lot of people. These men are married to women that are significantly younger than them, right? And a lot of times, probably children. Okay. So at the end of the day, they've molded this child's mind to accept nothing.
Yeah, listen, it look
is giving them.
Jamie,
I need him.
Jamie, check this out. Jamie, I hear. Listen, I hear all of y'all. This is. Hold on, Shay, hold on 1 second. Let me just allow Ye to go ahead and spit a couple bars real quick, cause listen, I gotta give him an opportunity, man.
I've been lost in the sauce.
Like, listen, man. And we got a lot of points going around here. A lot of good shit going on, man. Yay, man. Yay. Now that you've heard DB's point, you heard some of Tashi's point, some of Shay's point. I mean, so then if it's a lot, you go ahead, brother. Take what part of this corn in the cob you want to bite first, brother? Go ahead and take your shot, man. What part?
All right. So here we go. Okay. To one of Jamie's points, you said we were speaking specifically about the Asian communities, and you were saying that, you don't care about those standards or whatnot. I do think that, even though we are in this world to fend for ourselves, that we should have a collective group mentality as well too. There should definitely be a balance of the two. But I feel like our community needs to establish what are these group standards of ours, because now we are in a state of confusion. Some say this, some say that, and ultimately you're like, damn, I don't know what to do. I'm just trying to fend for my damn self. But speaking specifically, hold on, let me get the points. Y'all got a whole bunch of points.
Go ahead, cook, Ye. This is your floor, buddy.
I think when we're talking about these interracial relationships, I think more times than not, we're focused too much on the imagery of it and how it looks than the mentality of the two people involved, the actions of the two people involved, and what type of children these two people are producing. Because as someone mentioned earlier, we have a bunch of Black couples out there. We have a bunch of Black relationships out there, and some of them are very toxic. Not all of them. I'm not the dude that's going to say all Black or most Black relationships are toxic, but a lot of them are. But the imagery looks good. So we can say when we see that out in public, damn, that's Black love, which I support Black love, but I support more the mentality, the consciousness within that relationship and what that relationship produces. Also, let me see what else. We have to
got the whiteboard.
We have to understand. Yeah, that's right. Got my notes ready. We got to understand that amongst us, we already have enough divide. We have a ton of divide, and we're at war up against a great enemy. And this is another divide that they're feeding down to us that we're feeding into. Listen to what we're talking about. We're talking about pro-Black brothers and sisters. These are brothers that are saying, I am down for the struggle. I'm conscious of it. I do want to help out with the struggle. But a lot of our community is saying, just because you don't have the type of wife that I think you should have, fuck you, I'm gonna push you.
Yeah.
That's not smart. When we look at strategically, hold on. When we look at strategically with, let's say, the U.S. Army, one of the greatest powers in the world, these motherfuckers got Klan members in their army. They got pro-Black brothers in there. They got Mexicans that don't get along with Blacks. They got everything in there. They don't give a fuck though. They say, as long as you put on this motherfucking uniform and you stand under this flag, you're gonna represent for my cause. That's what you're gonna do. I don't give a damn about your divide outside of it. But when you come and you stand under this flag, what we fight for.
Let me throw something in here real quick, because this is in my mind, and it goes off of what you're saying. Okay, so by this mentality, right? By this mentality where people saying, well, you can't be pro-Black when you date outside of your race, right? So you got Ben Carson, right? Ben Carson, like coon of the century, okay? He's married to a Black woman, right? But by that mentality, you're going to tell me that he's more pro-Black than, let's say, Donald Glover, who, this is America. Donald Glover, who, has shown he pro-Black, but he married with a white woman. Or John Legend.
Can I just interject on that?
Sure.
The problem with the comparison that you just made is that I don't think that Carson has ever said, well, I'm for Black purity, or I'm
exactly.
And Donald Glover, or whatever his name, Childish Gambino, has been very vocal about racism.
Exactly.
And has a Caucasian or whatever. I don't know what his wife is, but if he does,
she's white.
He's gonna say, "Well, you're a walking contradiction."
Exactly.
Can I ask a question though? Can I throw one point in there, because I haven't talked for a while, so I want to talk now. When y'all mention that, when y'all mention like Donald Glover, right? My point is, does that negate his work now that he has a
Fuck
black
that.
wife?
Address her question, Tashi. Address her.
I want to bring this up.
No.
I want to bring this up.
This is your floor. DB, listen.
I haven't talked about
this is your floor.
Let me finish one point.
This
because
is address her.
I was thinking
listen,
about.
we're not going. Listen. I got a mute button, and I'm not afraid to use this. I am not afraid to use this fucking mute button. I told y'all, it's a lot of y'all in here. I told y'all that it's a lot of y'all in here. Y'all gonna have to respect this shit. Address what Tashi said before you move on. I'm giving you the floor. Just address what she said.
Okay, that's what I'm doing. That's why I said let me get the example. I don't know what you're doing. Now, don't be a moderator now. Let me finish my example.
What you mean?
My thing is that look, this is what I'm saying. When I'm saying like when you're talking about the fact of visually, right? Somebody who has put out work. You know what I mean? When you put out like what This Is America and all that stuff, they put out that work that is beneficial to black people in some way, some kind of how, even if just to push the culture a little bit more. Does that negate the fact that they have a white wife? And I was going to bring up the idea of Nate Parker because Jay, me and you had this conversation all the time, and you know how my views about not seeing Birth of a Nation real quick because of some issues beyond that. But you mentioned the fact that he had a white wife, right? And it made me think about this because I started changing my views about watching his movie, mainly because I felt like, first of all, my point of view was kind of being skeptical if I didn't watch his work, especially if it's something that's pushing a certain part of black culture forward. Mm-hmm. But then I also realized when I looked, which is another reason why I changed my mind, is that he has a program with this black college called Wiley College, which I think is his college, that he actually put out some money, right, into this program to help black filmmakers to go out there and put out their image more, right, to put out that black image more, to get that black voice out there more. But he's still married to a white wife. So now, which one is more powerful to you? The work that he's putting in for the culture, for black people, or the fact that he has a white wife?
Listen, dude, let me see. I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna give you this floor. Let me just answer his question, and then now I'm gonna give you ladies a chance to go ahead and get back in here because these brothers is playing today. They playing the fuck today. So DB, hold on. So DB.
You talking?
No. Actually, I was gonna get my thought together. I didn't mute myself. I'm here. Okay. I'm gonna get this thought together. Trust me, I know exactly what I'm going to say.
Don't start to choke now.
No, trust me, fellas. I am very informed. I know exactly where I am on this topic. DB.
Yeah.
So you mentioned about because you still didn't answer Tashi's question. The initial question was. Or the initial comment was how she's never heard Ben Carson get on his soapbox and start talking about.
Oh, you wanted me to talk specifically?
That's what the fuck I asked you. You wanted to go into a whole bunch of other shit.
Because I'm talking about because now we
No. Now I gave you had the opportunity. DB, you had your. I let you speak. You chose to say what you wanted to say. Now we're gonna listen. The question, the comment was about Ben Carson, not about was about her not seeing Ben Carson getting on a soapbox talking about black issues. I said to you guys before, marry who the fuck you want to marry. But if you want to fade away into obscurity in a neighborhood where you don't have to worry about that criticism, then you fucking do it. Right? Now, Childish Gambino. He is vocal, puts out creative work addressing topics, issues in this struggle. But still didn't think enough of a black woman to go ahead and marry her. Address it. I don't want to hear shit about their fucking work. None of that. Address that.
Because that's what we're talking about.
No, we're not.
If you're putting out pro-black stuff, if you're speaking about pro-black issues, you're putting that out, and you have a white wife. My image, and let me be specific about it. If you're putting out work for the pro-black community, that is worth more than the woman that you marry, with the color of the woman that is married. So if that's
says who? Says who?
It is. I'm saying you asking me what I think.
No, so saying you. I said says who? You said saying you.
But I'm saying that should be for everybody else as well. For the fact if they're doing something for the community, as the whole black community, what does that matter compared to the person?
That shit sound like black guilt to me. That shit sound like black guilt to me. That just sounds like
activism isn't wanted because you were married to a white woman. You know what? You're putting out all this stuff. You're putting all this stuff. You're pushing the agenda of your people. But no, sorry, thanks for coming. Your activism's not wanted because you're married to a white woman. That is fucking insane.
All right, listen. Listen, ladies, Shay, Tashi.
That's the name of the show, right?
Shay, Tashi.
Yeah, let the ladies talk.
Shay, Tashi. Go ahead, Shay. Go ahead.
Let me say this, right? I understand where DB is coming from. Let me say, you can learn anything from anyone, right? And that's pretty much what he's getting at. Like, you shouldn't, while we are opinionated, but the fact that he has a white wife, so it's kind of convoluted what he's saying, but what his message in of itself, we can learn from. So you can't really look at, or you can look at, you know, the fact that he's married to a white woman and all of these other things, right? But then minimize everything that he's doing. So it's kind of hard to do the same thing. That's just like, okay, for instance, and I'm gonna give my son, I'm gonna use this. My son, I have 4 boys, and I have one son that will tell me in a heartbeat he would only date a white woman. Now, as a black African-American woman, and all of his family is black, I felt very insulted about that. Because,
as you should.
Right, because, you know, how dare you say that? But at the same time, the love that I have for my son, right, is going to make me accept whomever he brings, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question real quick? Because I'm glad you said that, right? So, like we were talking about how other communities will ostracize you for that. Now, no matter what the reason, should we develop that same callousness because they do it?
But see,
you feel what I'm saying?
I asked the question, watch this. I asked the question to the young lady that he was dating. I said, does your parents know about my son and that he's black?
There you go.
Right?
And I don't have and that's right. Because let me tell you something. I dated white women before, and when I was younger. And my mother said the same thing. And my mother's thing was, if my son cannot go to your house, then you can't come over here. And you know what? At the time, I was like, yo, what the fuck? My son was young and naive back then.
That's
and
right.
Everything. But as I got older and understood how things work, I said, you know what? Hey, my mom was right. So I'm not saying, what I'm saying is, but you basically prove my point. But what I was saying earlier, as far as your son made the statement that he will only date a white woman. That mentality is what I think is problematic in interracial relationships.
I agree with that because here's the thing. In me speaking to my son more, I got to understand his mindset. Also,
I said that's what I meant with putting one on a pedestal over the other. That's what I meant.
But unfortunately, here's the thing. My son is, how old is not 20, right?
Right.
Unfortunately, right? Hello?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. Unfortunately, the younger society, right? When you look at the African-American women, right? And how they're being raised in a younger society, they are ratchet as shit. Within my son's culture.
Okay.
Notice I said within my son's culture. And unfortunately, because of that, and then if you take a African-American male and he's now educated and he's now this and he's now that, and the only women that he has to choose from that's in his surrounding area.
Miss Shay, how old is your child?
He's 20.
Okay.
I gotta get
perspective.
20. Huh?
I gotta get his perspective. I get it. Go ahead.
Right. So therefore, when he articulates himself very well, he's very educated, he's doing his thing, and he's in the Air Force. So he's in the military and he's traveling, right? But his thing is, mommy, the women that I have been surrounded with, unfortunately, as African-American women, and that's when I blame you men as African-American men and how y'all raise and accept some of the things that y'all daughters do, right? You don't want to be bothered with them.
Why don't you repeat that?
Say it again.
Repeat what you just said. Because if you repeat it, right, you know what I'm saying? Make sure everybody hears that shit. Because this is going to the point that I'm trying to make, right? Now, if these females are ratchet, and part of that is because either fathers are not present, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
You know, if This is my whole point. How do you rationalize in the minds of single black women, single black mothers, rationalize for them, gentlemen, how you could be talking about the struggle and not think enough of them to put one of them on your fucking arm? That's all I want to know. That's all I want to know. Fade away.
Okay, now we start to bring up the question. Now we start to bring up the question: what type of households are our children even coming from? Is there a pro-black mentality in the household? Is there a Pan-African mentality in the household? Are we even teaching our children? Are we saying, I only want you to date black? Because I wasn't brought up that way. And really, to be honest, we got to gain clarity on all the different types of black people in this country. Because technically, I'm Nigerian. I got a Nigerian father. I have a African American mother, but my dad told me he didn't want me with none of these American minded women. He wanted me with a Nigerian woman. So we even got to deal with the divide. Hold up. So we even got to deal with the divide amongst black people because I got Caribbean.
Wait a minute, Ye.
No, that's not. No.
Let Ye. Okay. Ye, you got to open that up. Ye, you got to open that up because this is what I'm talking about. When I say to you guys that you got to be consistent, right? At least people have to feel like you're consistent. If they attack your consistency, you can explain to them, listen, this is how I'm being consistent. It's interesting that you explain your ancestry. Your father is Nigerian and your mother is from here, right? Now, you're telling me that your father and your mother, who is from this country, produced you.
Yes.
But he still told you or still led you to believe that a woman from this country should not be the one that you choose to marry? This is what we're talking about? And now...
No, because I want to specify before you continue.
Okay.
A woman with the American mentality.
What's that mean?
Because a lot of Nigerian men do not like that female American mentality.
What does that mean? What does that mean, American mentality? Don't get yourself in no trouble, Ye. What you mean by American mentality, man?
I know you know what he's talking about.
I don't know. I want him to tell me what he's talking about.
Well, specifically when you did.
Oh, I know what he's talking
about. No, I don't fucking know. And I don't know if the public knows. Ye, what you mean by American female mentality?
I'm not going to be too long-winded with it, but in Nigeria, we come from a motherfucking patriarchy where men run this shit. So a lot of Nigerians came to America, specifically in the black community, and they said, hold up, what the fuck?
In Nigeria,
hold on, Shay, hold on. You're going to have plenty of time to respond to that. Plenty of time to respond to that.
No, I can't hear you.
You're beating around the bush.
Hold on, folks. Hold on for a second. Shay, you're gonna have plenty of time to address that. I
hope so.
Go ahead and finish, man.
You better know it.
Go ahead.
So his mentality and a lot of brothers that came from specifically Nigeria, when they came to the black community, they seen that a lot of sisters had that dominant mentality, which works in conflict to the way that they're raised. They're raised that a woman is supposed to be super submissive, not supposed to be this way, that way, and super aggressive in the home. But they seen it as, oh, hell no, I can't deal with this type of woman right here. So I'm gonna tell my son either he better go back home to get a woman, or he can't get a woman with this type of mentality right here. I'm not knocking that woman. I'm telling you what I was hearing in the household coming up. But there's even also a contradiction in that, because he told me, I want you with a Nigerian woman. But how can you tell your son you want him with a Nigerian woman if he's not raised in Nigeria and you raised him in Los Angeles, California, a very diverse city? And on top of that, we don't got no real black communities in LA. So you raised amongst all these others. So it's a contradiction within the home of what you're preaching to your child, as opposed to the environment in which he's raised in and the proximity of the women that he's around.
Ladies.
Yeah, Tosh.
Tashi.
Ladies.
I gotta unmute myself.
Okay.
Okay, so Anya said something about Nigeria and his father's perspective. Dane knows me for many years, and when I got pregnant with his godson, My dad kicked me out the house. And the reason was because we're Antiguan and TJ's father is Jamaican. You know, so we have a lot of infighting amongst our race within separate cultures. And it's a concern of mine. It's concerning, to hear, but it's not surprising to hear that a Nigerian male would say he would want his son to marry someone who is more like his ideal, let's say. Okay. 1. 2, I feel like as Black people, and I've always said this, because I'm West Indian, I look at Black people from the outside perspective, because we look at American Blacks differently than we look at ourselves. And one of the things that I feel like and I have to explain this to my nieces, when you on the island of Antigua, or you on the island of Jamaica, or wherever it is, the majority is Black.
Yep.
So when a white man steps foot on your land, or any other race, they are the anomaly. As opposed to the way the American culture is set up, we are the anomaly. We are the minority in a society that has, let's say, oppressed us over hundreds of years. Now, I think that because of being in that idea of oppression for so many years and enslaved and those types of things, Black Americans tend to be more open to diversity, because that's what we've seen. That's what we're used to. That's what we know. And it's okay to accept others because no one accepted us before. So we're more willing to accept people into our home, as opposed to a white family letting Jamie come into his home and being with his white daughter. We're more willing, like Shay is, to have Shay's son have a white woman come into her home.
No,
huh?
No, go ahead. I'm listening, honey.
But you get what I'm saying? The roles are reversed, because Black American people are more willing to open up our minds to having diversity come in, because we are already the diversity itself.
Right, but you know what? And to touch on what you said, though, but there's a cross section of people that want to move backwards from that. To me, that makes it's how, no matter how you got there, it's a compassion, it's a sense of compassion that we have as a people, and I don't feel like we need to move backwards from that to become more rigid. You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, and like I said, the issue as a whole, some people want to judge it as black and white, you know, no pun intended, but there's so much more nuance in that we cannot do that. We cannot do that. And you know, people want to throw these broad generalizations about, well, you know, if you're with A, then you can't be C. You know what I mean?
All right.
And I feel like, you know, it just does a disservice to so many people.
Here's the thing, though, Jamie. Here's the thing. When we go back to our original essence as indigenous peoples, we are welcoming people. You know what I'm saying? Love everybody. We taught the world love. We was the first. We the originators. But we gotta be specific. We're in a situation where we're talking about survival now. So I do understand the sentiment of such. You know, they're saying, hey, we need more black love. But I'm just saying we need more of that black mentality and more of the actions to follow. That's just
dude. And we talk about this all the time, and I'm not arguing that fact. And let me tell you, I love the concept of black love, but however, I feel like people take that concept and turn it into something negative when they start denigrating other people who, you know, maybe, you know, have relationships outside of their relationship and adversity. But what about what did me and you talk about? Because we haven't really touched on it. The colorism aspect too.
Exactly.
The colorism aspect too.
What about the colorism? Colorism?
I feel like it's even more pervasive than the whole interracial aspect. I mean, that's crazy. They're treating brothers out here that are with light-skinned women. Now, again, my mentality is if you feel like you have something better because you have a light-skinned woman over a dark-skinned woman, yeah, like you are trash. I get that. I'm not arguing that fact. But you got brothers out here that's just living their life. They just happen to be with a light-skinned woman, and they treat them like they're with a white woman.
So here's a question I want to ask to the panel. Okay. So we black people, we live in this black experience. But again, like I said, you know, our group has certain standards, but ultimately in this world, you out on your own. You out to fend for yourself. We don't have them old school communities to where, you know, we have arranged marriages and things like that. So you out here to fend for yourself. So you telling me if you out in this world and you run into a man or a woman, because we got men and women on this panel, and this man or woman has the type of mentality that you want in a mate, you got love for this man. I'm not putting love as number one, but I'm talking about the mentality of this person. You align mentally with this person. You say, damn, this is what type of mate I want. And speaking specifically on men, well, men and women, a lot of times it's simple with men. We just like, look, long as she fine and her mind is right, I'm with it. Are you telling me just because she's or he is not black, you could possibly pass up that person with the possibility of being single for forever or never find love? Or knowing that I passed up that person and like I never was able to find real.
Yes. Okay. And I'm gonna tell you why.
Before you go deep, ladies, Shay, just to strengthen your point, she says yes, and the proof is in the 40, 45, and 50-year-old women who are still single. You think that some of these women ain't dropped their gorgeous or got a lot of shit going on that they wouldn't be attractive? That they couldn't be attractive to another male in an ethnic group? They think they damn sure would be. But I know a lot of these black women that choose to go ahead and look for that black man and ultimately become 40, 45, 50 years old and still single. Go ahead, Shay. Hold on. I'm going to let them finish, Shay. I'm going to let them finish. I'm gonna let them finish. That was Shay's point.
Let me throw this. That number is problematic, and again, respect to my sisters, but you still got to remember that the sisters heavily outnumber brothers anyway. And on top of that, you got a lot of brothers.
Come on, man, stop playing.
Hold on, no, we got a lot of brothers.
Right.
We got a lot of brothers that don't even want women. You know what I'm saying? And you got brothers that. And you got sisters that Hold on. You got brothers that are already taken. You know what I'm saying? So it's gonna be a bunch of single women, one way or another.
That's a whole other conversation. My dating. That's a whole
other conversation.
All right. So can we let Shay make her point and then let's let Shay make her point and then let Tashi make her point as well.
I'm not finished.
Okay.
But
don't let him finish. Don't let him finish.
Okay.
Ultimately, if we have this small percentage of brothers who is not dating sisters, we still gonna have a lot of single sisters out there. So that's a whole nother conversation to address all of these single women out there.
Let me say something real quick. When Dane told me the topic of this story, I was surprised because I find that Anya and the young man, I only talked with him once.
Jamie.
They're very pro-black. But let me tell you this, y'all are not my type.
See?
So even if, and that's no shade.
Yeah.
That's cool. If you weren't into me, I wouldn't be into you.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, at the end of the day, there's a lot of dynamics and a lot of facets to this issue. But for me, I would love to marry again a black man.
So
but I'm not taking them as seriously unless they're where I want them to be.
But you're not writing it off, though. You're not writing it off. You're not writing it off. You said you want to marry a black man, but you wouldn't unless they were where you wanted to be. So if you found somebody that was where,
let me tell you something. Here it is. This is second time talking with me, brother. I'm very open to everything. I'm a very enlightened young lady. But again, you and Anya are not particularly my type. So at the end of the day, you would be eliminated from that group of
no, I understand what you're saying.
Right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I've dated one single white man. And I'm going to speak on that once Miss Shay talk. I'm going to tell you about that.
Go ahead, darling. Shay, it's on you.
All right. I say no. Unequivocally no. Because while we can have the same mindset and I can intellectually have a conversation with you, ultimately, once that intellectual conversation is over, what else do I want with you? Do you see what I'm saying to you? So yeah, you can mentally stimulate me, but at the end of the day, you're not black. You're not my African American king. And so therefore, while I can sit down and have a conversation with you and we can talk politics and we can do all of that, I will not be your trophy black bitch that you have on your arm because that's what y'all been doing for slavery. That's just not what I'm doing.
You see how much Shay loves black men? Good grief. Oh my God.
That's
And you know,
exactly what
you know
I'm
the
doing.
thing about it
Hey,
is,
so,
Wait,
so
you know what? That's no, no.
ultimately, what I'm hearing from a lot of sisters is
Yo, let Shay finish. Let Shay finish. Let
what
Shay
I'm
finish.
saying. Now, I pride myself on being an educated Black woman. Do you understand? And I raised four young men, three of them who are very successful. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? And with that being said, even then, and I've been through situations where I had negative Black men in my life, but even then, I'm still not going to rule out I'm not going to deal with a Black man because of what I've been through. Do you see what I'm saying to you? Because at the end of the day, a Black man is my king. And only person that can lead my household is a Black man.
Yeah, and you know what? I respect that. I totally respect that because that is your personal preference, and that's cool. And I respect everything you're saying. I'm not just saying you know, that's your personal preference, you know, trying to be an asshole. I totally get what you're saying, and a lot of the points I agree with that. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I guess I have a problem with, and not personally with you. So that's what's good for me. That's where I'm at. But I expect everyone to share that same sentiment.
I have a question for both of y'all. Since
Can I?
DB,
Okay.
Shay, hold on, Shay.
I'm back. No, I'm done. I'm turning to the side. Y'all call me when y'all ready.
No. Let
I just have a
DB.
quick question.
Come on, man. Come on, man. Let D get a little burn in here, man.
Ask this one question, I'm gonna shut up. Anya, you said when you speak to somebody, they intellectually you're into them, right? The first thing a man sees is not your intellectual appearance.
No. I also said that she got to look good and her mentality got to be in the right place.
So
I said both.
she got to look good, right?
Yeah.
Why would you, if your thing is I'm not dealing with a white woman, why would you even go that step further if that's not your preference?
Huh?
What do you mean? I'm not understanding.
Yeah.
Okay.
Specify that a little bit more.
So when a man deals with a woman or a woman deals with a man, we look at physical attractions, correct?
Yeah.
Right. So if you're not physically attracted to a white woman or physically attracted to somebody outside of your race, no matter how much intellectual stimulation you get from them, you're not going to be physically attracted to them.
No.
Here's the difference. Here's the big difference between a lot of brothers and sisters that I see. Within y'all experience, within y'all scope, y'all may see something different. From a lot of brothers I've been around, and maybe this is my LA experience, and that's why I say we have to take into play where a person was raised and the people that they were raised around. Brothers, for the most part, don't have those type of limitations to say, I only want to date Black women. I've known a lot of sisters from LA, even back here to Atlanta, to say, I only want to date brothers. I'm not knocking if you say that, but if you say that, you got to understand that you have limited your life. And you may be single for the rest of your days because of such. I'm not knocking.
I don't like that though. I don't like
that. That's real though. Let me finish my statement. I'm gonna make it quick. I'm gonna finish my statement. Okay.
I'm ready to fight.
So, as human beings, we weren't meant to be on this motherfucking colorism shit. Like, let's point the finger really needs to be pointed. It needs to be pointed on fucking white supremacy. And how it has divided us in the ways that it has divided us, how it has pushed us into this mentality for survival. But at the end of the day, it's not supposed to be about this colorism. But we feed into this shit. And this shit limits us. It holds us back from a lot of things that are meant for us in this life.
The reason why the colorism comes into play, Jamie, is because what we're forgetting is experience, dude. You got to talk about these experiences.
That's bullshit.
Listen to what I'm saying. Listen, man. It can't be bullshit because it can't be bullshit because if you have a group of people, you know what? Hold on for a minute. Give me 2 minutes. Sometimes history is painful. Just read that enslaved Black women were made pregnant so often by white masters breeding them that the slaveholders' wives no longer had to suckle their own children. Most white children in Virginia, the largest slave breeding industry of the South, was suckled by Black slave women. In fact, Black female slaves were rented out to white families who had infants to care for. So white slaveholders were literally selling a black slave woman's body and the protein and calcium out of her body, served as a wet nurse. Southern white women got used to not raising their own children.
Nannies,
Why do
nannies,
so? Hold on,
nannies.
Tashi. Why do so when you have free nannies and wet nurses? Light-skinned African American slaves were often held aside just for sale to white men for sexual slavery. 2/3 of African American slave families were separated for selling on a regular basis. This comes from a book, The African Slave Coast.
Right.
Listen to what I'm saying. Listen, Ye. That's why you gotta focus on experience. Cause I'd be damned if a woman or people who come from this bloodline, are going to sit here and listen to you motherfuckers talk about black this, but not considering the shit that they went through. I'll be damned, Ye. I'll be damned, Jamie. Experience fucking matters.
So are you telling me, because we spoke about this in the conversation before, are you telling me the black female experience in America is the same or parallel to the black male experience here in America? Are you telling me that?
No, I'm not. I'm not saying.
He said.
All right, but Anye.
Hold on, Shay. Hold on. Let me just.
I want to hear what DB has to say.
He said before that experience matters. I want somebody from my experience, but we still have to differentiate. We're black males, they're black women. Our experience is different. Even our perception or understanding of our experience is much different. Black women and black men do not have the same type of encounters from the police. Black men and black women do not deal with.
That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about historical background.
You may disagree. Black men and black women do not deal with the same type of experiences in the job force. Black men and black women are not dealing with the same thing. We talk about being a threat. Black women ain't a threat like black men are in America. Are you kidding me?
Let me tell you what I mean.
Black women are not being in prison the same numbers as black men in this country.
Listen,
experience is not different.
Listen,
you can't.
This is one of the.
Hold on.
Really
Folks,
that we go off on a tangent.
Hold on.
And we forget what we're supposed to be talking about.
All right, so let me what I'm saying. Let me say DB's coming. Listen, we go into final thoughts right after this, man, because you guys we're running a long time. We're gonna go to final thoughts. Everybody's gonna have a chance to finish up. But listen, when I say experience, right, you got to understand that when I read something like this, the first thing that it makes me want to do is go see my wife, get on my knees and kiss her fucking feet. That's the first thing, something like that. What I'm saying is that's the first thing that something like this, after reading it, makes me want to do. So when you hear people speaking about pro-black and not defining what they mean specifically in terms of experience, this is why I say people got to be careful, because there is a group of people in this country who come from this bloodline who are not going to sit here and listen to you rationalize how you listen.
Look. So ultimately, does the conversation become you pro-black men and women who not with a black person? Get the fuck out of here. We don't want you talking that pro-black shit. Don't put in work in the community. Just be with your non-black. Fuck y'all.
No. It's not that you have to get out. I am going to tell you what your role becomes. Like I said, when you think about the Me Too movement, right? I'm sorry, not Me Too movement. The movement that
ADOS,
Tamika Mallory, and
oh, you talking about that's the women's march.
Women's march. Yeah. Okay, with when you think about how she is the head of this situation, but she has women of other ethnic groups who are part of it, right? They are in line mentally with what the agenda is, right? But they are from another ethnic group. We're not saying that you can't, that other ethnic groups can't contribute to it. The thing is, you're not going to head this motherfucker. Meaning, if you run it around here with your fists up and everything in your personal life, your professional life is not congruent with what you doing here, then you need to take a step back and let the motherfuckers who are be the front runners. You cannot be the face of this shit.
Now we dealing with being strategic. So, but what if the brother that is with a non-black woman is more qualified for that position? What if he is a better leader? What if he is the better thinker? Do we still say we just can't put you in that position because you're not with a black woman? So we'll rather put the motherfucking lesser of the two in the motherfucking position of leadership just because of goddamn imagery. That shit is crazy, bro.
I hear you. Okay, so we're gonna get into let's get into final thoughts. Let's get into final thoughts. We're gonna start with you. Let's get into final thoughts. We'll start with you, Jamie. We had a lot of information, man. A lot of shit going on, a lot of back and forth. Man, go ahead. Anything you missed?
We're gonna need a part 3 on this, honestly, because we didn't even scratch the surface. I really believe, because like judging by what you just said, G, you have people. You're invalidating people like, let's see, Harry Belafonte, Frederick Douglass, Sidney Poitier.
W. Du Bois.
I didn't invalidate anybody. I just said that they can't be.
I just said that statement. You are.
No. Listen, I'm not. Here's the thing. You're not going. Listen, Harry Belafonte, right, is not going to point to a descendant of slave and tell him how he should move about in this struggle, especially if he's a critical thinker. What Harry Belafonte would need to do is respect the fact that this critical thinking descendant of slave, this is his fucking experience. And if this is the way he wants to move and you want to be a part of this movement, you fall in line. You don't come in here and try to change that shit. You don't come from that motherfucker. How dare you? How dare you? How fucking dare you? Listen, this is final thoughts. Y'all getting me involved in y'all final thoughts. Finish up.
My final thought is at the end of the day, look, like we can chop it up about this all day. Yeah. At the end of the day, the bottom line is this: like, your pro-black is something that's in your heart. Mm-hmm. So no matter what you feel, those two queens right there feel, DB feel, Anye feel, it doesn't fucking matter. As long as I'm pro-black and I preach that in my household, what you guys feel, it doesn't matter. What anybody feels doesn't matter.
Respect that, because
that's my experience and that's what I have to live. And that's that. I will feel like something needs to be said about the whole colorism thing, because at the end of the day, we are denigrating our own people for being with other black people because of the hue of their skin. I think that's bullshit. That's fucked up. We need to touch on that. But like I said before, as pro-black as I am, I will not and I never will be black on
somebody else's terms,
your terms, or anybody else's terms.
Not the bad. DB,
you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, not bad, brother. DB, go ahead, brother. Final thoughts.
Oh, so many thoughts. I mean, automatically, man. Because we jumped around so fucking much since I had the original thought. I do believe experience matters. The thing about experience, though, is we have the experience like the one that you mentioned, but we also have the experience of colorism. We also have the experience of assassination. We also have the experience of mass incarceration, which is part of something we don't even bring up when we talk about single moms. We have the whole experience of drugs in the neighborhood. We have this whole displacement within this community where we're so all over the place that to speak on this one issue like this is a problem, or as a main problem, because there is some problems with it. I agree with your original point, and I agree with the whole idea of colorism, because there is that light skin, black skin mentality. Even in my place in Jamaica, that is a major thing. So that's something that's in every place of color. You kind of have that aspect to it, but it is a matter of your experience. And the thing about marriage, to me, is that we talk about it on the love aspect, but marriage should be an intellectual thing just as much as it's love. So if just how like Shay and Tashi both make a decision to stay black, the same decision I make. I want to put that clear. Like I make a decision when and also the purpose of mine is black woman. So when I go out there, I'm more attracted to black women than I am white women, period. And that's just my personal preference. But I also made the decision with my wife. It wasn't necessarily just the fact that I love her, because I do, but it was also, this is the perfect woman for me. You know what I mean? And that was just an overall thing on top of my preference. Gotcha. So when it comes to people like Ye and all that, especially Ye, because I know Ye, and I know the stuff he does. I know stuff that he teaches kids. And another thing we didn't touch as the kids itself is that it is who you're putting out to the community. That pro-blackness, that and one more point, and I'm gonna leave it alone. But the idea of pro-blackness, because we're talking just about descendant of slaves and the American descendant of slaves, which I'm finding out now is a movement on its own that separates itself from the whole experience of black people, especially black people in America, specifically immigrants. Indeed. So now that is another thing altogether that is different. Are we talking Pan-Africanism pro-black? Are we talking just American descendant of slaves pro-black?
Okay. Before we go any further,
you got to define it.
Gotcha. Yay. Give me something, buddy. Final thoughts.
All right, final thoughts. Hey, man, we at war in this motherfucking. We need all hands on motherfucking deck. We can't afford to be motherfucking picky and choosy about who's under this motherfucking umbrella.
Facts.
If somebody's loyal to this motherfucking pro-blackness, they loyal to the struggle, they willing to die.
Facts.
Bring your ass in the door and let's fight in this motherfucker. And lastly, to say, you know, I keep hearing the sentiment that maybe in another 20, 30, 40 years, this country's going to be all brown like Jamie. Maybe that'll be a good thing to get us away from right. Children from this bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Or then again, maybe they'll be focused on some other type of ignorance.
Your eyes aren't green.
Tashi in transition. Real quick, folks, before she finishes that, this thing, man, she is doing some very powerful things in the Bronx, New York. Two to the Bronx. Folks, look it up, donate, support. Tashi, give me your final thoughts, though.
Wait, to talk about that, you can donate via our website at twotothebronx.org, or you can use our Cash App, Two to the Bronx Inc. on Cash App. Anyway, yes, I made a Cash App because people love to say they can't donate via their website. Everybody got Cash App. Let's go. Donate $5. Gotcha. I'll take that. We have an event coming up soon, so we need all the funds.
I'm gonna make sure I post them links down there. But go ahead, Tashi, give it a shot.
Sure.
All right. So, for one, Two to the Bronx does not. Just in regards to Two to the Bronx, Two to the Bronx was something that I created, and as a black woman, you would think that I would pivot off of blackness in some way, but I just made sure that it was just open to all children because learning is, of course, universal and essential. So that's something that's important to me. So I'm very big on diversity, but as a person who's raising two black sons and a person who's of West Indian descent, I just am not attracted to other races. I'm attracted to them visually, but when it comes down to like, y'all talk about experiences, but talking about relating and empathy and sympathy and all that stuff, I can't relate to other races. Not as yet. I haven't experienced that. Mm-hmm. I've dated one white male, and he has always dated black women. He's very, very open to, the black experience, but he's a great friend. Mm-hmm. He would never be someone I would be in a relationship with. Not because he wasn't a great person, but because I just couldn't see myself doing it. I think that you have to be open minded to having relationships with other races first before you can even be interested in that race. But as a black woman, I'm not interested in being with anything other than a black man as of right now. Nice. That doesn't mean that I'm not open to it in the future.
Nice to hear that.
I do not see a problem with dating outside your race. I do see a problem with being on a soapbox and talking about race, and then you are contradicting yourself at home. Because once you put yourself in that soapbox, you become a public figure, and everything is under the microscope then. So I do have a problem with those childish Gambinos, those other people that feel like dating a white woman or whoever it is outside their race is okay because their private life is private. But once you're on that platform, it's no longer private, and you can be critiqued for that. So I feel like that's part of the reason why they are being ridiculed or critiqued is because they put themselves on that platform to be transparent to other people.
Okay. So, Tashi, I'm sorry. I hate to cut you, darling. We are going to have another show for this, but we are running so close to time.
Yeah,
Shay,
make sure next time us women talk a little bit more.
Of course. This is for y'all guys anyway. Shay,
I love you, but
Shay, real quick, final thoughts, please, so we can go ahead and
Here's my final thoughts. Before you can actually talk about interracial dating, be sincere within your own race, whether you're West Indian, whether you're African American, whether you're born here, whether you're born in another country. The reality of it is we have our own, we ostracize our own. And so before you can start talking about really dealing with someone ostracizing a different race, we need to come together as one race.
Not bad. Well, folks, listen, I'm going to tell you, we had a dope show. I don't care if you agree, whatever. But listen, jump in the comments if you got anything extra to say. Go ahead, put it in there. We're always monitoring. Hit us with a like, hit us with a share. Be sure to check out youtube.com/reality guru show. Consider subscribing. Listen, I got Jamie, DB, Tashi, Anye, Shay. I'm G Cleve, Reality Gurus. Take care.